Sounds True presents Shamanic Navigation, Shapeshifting Techniques from the Andes, Yucatan, and Tibet, with author, ecologist, businessman, and healer, John Perkins.
Ababare. In one of the languages of the Amazon, Ababare means, I love you. It's a greeting. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome into my life. Welcome to my heart. Ababare. Welcome. I would like to ask you now, please, to journey back with me deep, deep, deep into the Amazon jungle. It's a dark night, and you're very, very deep in the jungle. A 15-day walk from the nearest road. It's very, very dark. And you're sitting inside of a Shwa lodge. The Shwa are indigenous people who've lived in the Amazon for thousands of years. No one knows how long. They're most famous as warriors, headhunters. If you've ever seen a shrunken head or a picture of one, it was done by the Shwa. The Shwa are the only people today who shrink heads. And so here you are, deep in the Amazon rainforest, on a dark, dark night, inside a Shwa lodge. It's oval-shaped, made of split bamboo stuck up in the ground, a dirt floor, and a beautiful thatched roof over your head. And there's a fire. You're sitting around the fire with a group of friends, people from your own country, and also with the Shwa family. In front of this fire, right next to it, sitting on a small wooden stool, is a shaman, a powerful Shwa, shape-shifting shaman. And he's chanting to you. His voice rises and falls with the wind outside. And all of you sitting around the fire are being drawn by this chant into your own hearts, into the fire itself, into the water of the river that flows nearby, into the air and the earth, the four elements, and into the heart of the shaman himself. And you're sitting there watching the fire, listening to the sounds, feeling with your heart. And then slowly you watch the shaman stand up from his stool, walk across in front of the fire and outside the circle of friends, and head for the door. As he reaches the door, he transforms, shapeshifts into a jaguar, and goes out the door as a jaguar. You hear the roar of the mighty jaguar as he leaves. And you sit there with your friends, amazed, shocked, a bit frightened, and deeply impressed. That's an actual thing that happened in the Amazon not too long ago with a group that I had taken there. This group was not a group of crazy people. It was a group of people that included a medical doctor, psychologist, business professor, a housewife, a couple of school teachers, massage therapist, people like you and me. And the next morning, when we went outside, we saw jaguar tracks where the shaman had left, shape-shifting into a jaguar. Several days later, he returned in human form as a shaman. Sometimes in our culture, we find this type of shape-shifting a little difficult to understand or believe. But in cultures like those of the Shwa, it's a fairly common occurrence, something they're raised with. It's like cancer in our culture. Cancer is a cellular shapeshift also. And for people like the Shwa, it's very difficult to understand why our culture is so overtaken by something like cancer, where the body shapeshifts itself into disease. Now I'd like to share with you another story. So if you would journey with me, this time to the high Himalayan mountains, near Tibet, in a little area that's called Ladakh, or Little Tibet. The mountains are the highest in the world, barren, snow-capped, and very high up in these mountains there's a monastery. It's called Hemus Monastery. It's a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. You go inside this monastery, and the pillars are painted blue and red and white. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and all around there are statues of the Buddha, and there are lamas and rinpoches walking around. And you go up to one of the lamas and talk to him and ask him to tell you more about this place, this Hemus Monastery. And he tells you that this is the place where 16 lamas live who are able to melt the snow with their bodies. They spend most of their time up there, and he points to the top of one of the mountains that you can just see over the walls of the courtyard of the monastery. It's all covered with snow. And this is where the lamas go, and they melt snow. And you remember reading about this in books about the research team from Harvard Medical School that went out and actually measured this and determined that these lamas are able to increase the temperature of their body parts by as much as 12, 13, 14 degrees when they melt the snow. These lamas are up there. You can see the place where they are on the glacier in the snow. And then he tells you something even more remarkable, that these lamas are able to fly. And you ask him if you can meet one. And he says, well, right now they're all up there. Then several days later, you're at a festival down in Leh, the capital city of Ladakh, quite a ways from the Hemus Monastery, maybe a 3-hour drive by car over rough roads. And you're listening to the Dalai Lama, who's giving a lecture to these people, his people, many of them refugees from Tibet, like him. There's several thousand people assembled in an open field listening to the Dalai Lama speak. And one of the lamas who you met up at the Hemus Monastery comes over, taps you on the shoulder, and asks you to come with him. And he takes you along a little path between rows and rows of people. And then he asks another lama to stand up and introduces you. And he explains to you that this other lama, within the hour, was up on the top of the mountain, and that he just flew down here to be with the Dalai Lama. He's one of the Dalai Lama's teachers. And you talk to him about this, and you say, did you actually fly down here? And he laughs and he says, oh yes, not like a bird. You wouldn't see my wings flapping. I was there one moment and here the next. He shapeshifted. We call that bilocation or translocation, a shapeshift, a cellular change. Once again, this may be a difficult one for many of us in our culture to understand or to accept or to believe in, and yet someone like the Dalai Lama, who many of us respect and think of as a very knowledgeable, scientific, rational person, he knows that this happens. He writes about it in some of his books. A shaman is a person, a man or a woman, who journeys into other worlds in order to get power, energy, and wisdom from those worlds, which he or she then uses to effect change in this world. When we think of other worlds, we can call them the psyche or the subconscious or the unconscious. Those are all just words. But a shaman is a person who journeys into these other spaces and finds the energy and wisdom and power needed there to effect change in this world. Often that change involves healing other people of illnesses, diseases, but it can also involve helping communities better integrate with their environment, affecting the growing cycles for plants or the migratory habits of animals, those sorts of things. However, a shaman always uses his or her powers to effect change in this world. Now I'd like to take you back to that same Shwa Lodge that we were at earlier. It's very, very dark. And there's a shaman there. Now he's put out the fire. Everything is dark because he's doing a sacred healing ceremony. He's doing several sacred healing ceremonies on our group of people. It's a different group of people than the one who saw him transform into a jaguar, but also people from Europe, Canada, in the United States. And he's just completed a healing on a woman named Sarah. Sarah is a very highly educated woman, a scientist by training, a chemist, who heads up a research laboratory for a large pharmaceutical company. She's in her late 30s, and she's been totally clinically deaf since she was a teenager. She's come into the jungle specifically to understand and hopefully heal this hearing disability that she has. The shaman took her on a powerful journey and now has sent her off into another room, away from the central room, a room with 2 beds where she's lying down, her roommate is sitting on the bed next to her, and I'm sitting next to Sarah. It's totally, completely dark in this room. Sarah wears a hearing aid, which allows her to hear and understand the human voice when one's lips are right next to the hearing aid. She can also hear other sounds that she can distinguish through her hearing aid. But as soon as you get away from Sarah's ear, as soon as your mouth moves a foot or so away from her, she can no longer hear any of the words. She reads lips proficiently, but in this darkest of Amazonian nights, in this room without a candle, without a fire, without a light, she can't possibly read my lips. So I'm speaking into her ear directly, my lips touching her ear and her hearing aid. And I'm asking her to describe for me this journey that she continues to take, that the shaman got her started on. She tells me that she's going back to her time in her life when she was a child and in her early teens, when things were spoken in her house that were terribly, terribly painful for her. Things she didn't want to hear. Things that hurt so deeply she couldn't bear to hear them. And she's taking this journey back to that time that she hasn't looked at, she's been ignoring. And as she's talking, and I continue to ask her questions, and she continues to answer them, I move further away from her ear. A foot, 2 feet. I start moving down the bed. And after a while, I'm at the other end of the bed, 5 or 6 feet away from her, a long way, way beyond her normal capacity to hear me. And she continues to answer my questions. I reach over to the bed next to her where her roommate is sitting in the dark, her roommate unable to see me because it's so dark, and I touch her roommate's knee. And her roommate gasps. She can't believe what's going on. She can't believe that Sarah's hearing me now that she knows that I'm at the opposite end of the bed. So while in our culture it may be difficult to accept people shape-shifting into jaguars or flying across the Himalayan glaciers in order to be by the Dalai Lama's side, I think we're able to accept the miracles that sometimes happen in the healing process, like the one I just described about Sarah. That's all part of the miracles that we call shape-shifting. And I think in our culture, we like to define things, we like to categorize things, so I often define shape-shifting as occurring on 3 levels. And in actuality, these levels kind of blend together, and there's probably many, many, many more. But for simplicity's sake, we say that there are cellular shapeshifts, personal shapeshifts, and institutional shapeshifts. Now, cellular shapeshifts are like the ones I've just been describing. People transforming into jaguars or translocating, people being healed of physical ailments like Sarah's deafness. But physical shapeshifts happen to all of us all the time. It's part of the aging process. We gain weight, we lose weight, we get a cut, the cut heals, the cells change. Those are all part of physical shapeshifting. We all experience them all of the time. Maybe what we'd think of as being not quite as dramatic as some of the ones we've described here, but when you really think about it, it's all very dramatic. Cellular shapeshifts. The second type of shapeshifting, personal shapeshifts, are something that we're very familiar with in our culture. It's something that the psychologists and counselors work with all the time. It's often about changing personality, usually bringing out the parts of ourselves that we like best about ourselves. Or it may be getting rid of an addiction. It may be bringing out some talent, such as improving our abilities as a writer or a musician, or a dancer. It's going into ourselves and seeing what we really want to do to change ourselves, to be better, and then shape-shifting ourselves to make that happen. It brings to mind a story of a friend of mine in Indonesia, a young woman who came to me and said, I really want to be a dancer. Can you help me shapeshift into being a dancer? And I asked her to dance for me, and she did classic Balinese dance. And it was absolutely beautiful what she did. It was incredible. And so I said to her, well, you are a dancer. And she said, but I haven't been hired. I've never danced in public. I said, but still, you are a dancer. So you don't need to shapeshift into being a dancer. You are a dancer. You need to set your intent clearly on selling yourself as a dancer to a producer, if that's what you want. If that's your intent now, is to move into being a professional dancer and making money at it, that's different. But don't look at yourself as needing to become a dancer, because you already are a dancer. And I see this situation very often with people. People come to me and say, I want to be a writer. And I'll ask them if they've ever written anything. And yes, I've written several books. And I'll look at them and they're very well written. And so they already are a writer. The important thing then is to recognize that what they're really looking at is shape-shifting into being a published writer. And that type of thing can go on and on. Those are all personal shape-shifts. The third type of shape-shifting is institutional shape-shifting. And I personally feel that this is one of the most important types of shape-shifting right now for our culture to go through. Because institutional shape-shifting is about changing the way our society relates to itself and to the individuals within it. It's about changing corporations and governments and being more sensitive to the things we need to be more sensitive about. And I think we can all agree that at this point in human history, there's a major crisis going on in the way we relate to our environment and what we're doing for future generations. And all of that revolves around institutional parameters. It's easy to shapeshift those, to change them, and we do that through institutional shapeshifting. The fact of the matter is that whenever we do one type of shapeshifting, it often leads to another type. And in general, institutional shapeshifting requires at least personal shapeshifting and sometimes cellular shapeshifting. One more thing I'd like to mention about this area of shapeshifting, particularly the cellular form, and that is that as I researched these things for my book, which is entitled Shapeshifting, I found that many people wrote about cellular shapeshifts, but most of them said, oh yes, these are things that were done in the past, centuries ago, when indigenous people needed to hunt buffalo or escape from enemies or whatever. They were able to shapeshift into wolves or buffaloes or trees. But we've lost that ability and we no longer need it. Well, I disagree with these statements very, very strongly. I personally have done cellular shapeshifts, and I've seen other people do them. I've been with Sarah, I've been with the shamans, I've been with the lamas. I've seen and experienced and heard people talk about these things. And I feel that it's a very important thing for us to undergo right now, because the only way to really understand shapeshifting is through experiencing it. And when you experience a cellular shapeshift, you know that anything is possible. And perhaps that's the strongest message that I'd like to bring to you. Anything and everything is possible. We can do it all through shapeshifting. It's a very, very exciting process. Now, on the first part of this program, we're going to be talking a lot about shapeshifting, and I'll be telling more stories. On the second part of this program, you're going to be experiencing it. You'll be taking some journeys that help you travel to the very heart of the process that will enable you to undergo your own cellular, personal, or institutional shapeshifts. And I think that's the best way to learn, through experiencing. For me, experiencing shapeshifting is really the only way to learn. And the second best part of this process is to hear stories of others. It's not an intellectual process. Shapeshifting is not something that comes from the brain. It's something that comes from the heart. So how does shamanic healing work? I think it's important to begin with for us to know that it works on many levels, and it is never something that's really imposed by another person. The shamans will be the first to tell you that they essentially do nothing. The shaman is not a healer. The shaman simply helps you break through barriers that are preventing your healing, helps open you up so that you understand the messages that you're getting from the dis-ease or to move into the new dream, and then helps you work with the elements. The healing comes from Pachamama, Mother Earth, universe, time, and from 4 elements, which then lead into the 5th element, Ushai, or our consciousness of oneness. In modern medicine, we can't really explain how most medicines work or most healings occur, with the exception, of course, of surgery. We don't know how most of the medicines work. We don't know how aspirin works. We just know that it does. There's a lot to be said for that with shamanism. But speaking from my own personal experience, when I go to a shaman, one of the first things that has to happen is that the shaman helps me break through my own barriers of fear. The fact that I've decided to have a healing is really the first step, because I've defined my dream, and that is to get over whatever problem I have. But now there's probably a number of barriers in my way. So when I was in the Amazon and I lost 35 pounds in less than a week, the first step was to realize I wanted to get over that. The second was to realize that there were these barriers in my life, the teachings of previous people in my life, my parents, whoever. As soon as I started working with a shaman, I felt a change in that. The shaman, somehow, as he was working with me, I realized that the food that these people eat isn't dangerous. They've been eating it for hundreds and thousands of years and are very healthy people. He helped me break through this barrier of fear around the food. Or rather, I should restate that and say, I'm not sure that he helped me break through the barriers. He couldn't even speak with me. We didn't speak the same language. His presence, the energy around him, opened me up to a new way of seeing. And then the shaman will bring in the elements. So suddenly, as you're being healed, you're feeling the air that's created by feathers moving around you, or you're feeling the earth touching you in the form of plants and stones that are being rubbed on you, or you feel the power of the fire as you're being touched with it or as you're being put close to it. You feel the power of the water that's being sprayed on you. And you get very, very into the present and very into a sensation that you really are one with these elements. And if they're not sick, why should you be, if that's not your dream? So it's a very subtle process on the one hand. On the other hand, it can happen very, very quickly. I also certainly know of a number of people that have had shamanic healings that haven't worked for them. But my experience with those who have shamanic healings that are not successful is that they're really not open to the process, that they really haven't got the message of what it is they wanted healed yet or wanted changed, and that they're not receptive to this feeling of oneness, this feeling of the present. I think the other thing that's very important for us to understand is that sometimes the healing that we think we want is not really the healing that we need. And I'm going to give a rather radical or drastic example of that I sometimes have brought into people who are dying by family members. And the family members ask me to work with the dying person to bring them back to health. One of the first things I try to discover is whether this person really wants to be brought back to health. And very often you discover that the person is really ready to transform, to shapeshift, to move out of this life, and that the only thing that's holding them in this life is the will of family members and others that they stay alive. So the person really isn't wanting to get healthy, but is really wanting help at moving on. And I think this sometimes happens with some of our other illnesses, that sometimes we need a break. We need a rest. This happens to me. I push myself very hard and then find that I need to take a little vacation. And there are times in my life where sickness seems to be the only thing that offers me that vacation. As I understand this better, I hope I reach a point where I'll say, gee, I need to take some time off. If I don't, sickness is going to come and force me to do that. That's part of the healing process too, is understanding this. Now, if we really want to get into what happens during a shamanic healing, we need to experience it, and we'll do that later in this program. But I'll describe the steps involved. The first one is to have the vision of what we want changed. We've been talking about healing, but we can apply this same approach to any shapeshift we want to go through. So we have to have the vision very clearly, and then state the intent of how we want the shapeshift to happen. I want to be healthy, for example. And the next step is to use the elements to bring in energy to help us make this shapeshift. And the last step, the fourth step, is that we need to start taking actions to change our life in this regard, to respond to the messages that we're getting, to do things differently, to really manifest our dreams. Now, again, this will be much clearer when we actually move through the process of experiencing it later in the program. It's important to recognize that none of this is intellectual. As I said at the beginning, it's difficult to explain this verbally. It's much more powerful to experience it, to feel it. It has to come from the heart rather than the mind. So when we talk about 4 steps, in actuality, you could look at it as 1 step, or you could probably define it as 10 steps when you break the 4 down. We've talked about this 4-step process to shapeshifting, and one of those was applying energy. Most of that energy comes through the elements. The elements are always available for us. Why are the elements so important, and why is this idea of energy so important? It's because when you get right down to it, all we are is energy. According to modern science, we are air and energy, basically. Everything in us is about energy. So if we want to shapeshift, what we need to do is affect our energy levels. And the best way to do this is through the elements. I'm reminded of a time when I was a child growing up in New Hampshire, and I was with a friend one day standing next to a pond. It was very cold. It must have been about 32 degrees. I know that now, although at the time it didn't mean anything to me. But the pond still was water. It wasn't ice. And as we stood there, my friend picked up a stone, a fairly large one, and threw it into the pond. Immediately, the pond froze over. And I've talked to people since then. It made such a huge impression on me. I've talked to people since then about this. It's not that uncommon that all it took to shapeshift that pond from a liquid to a solid was this intervening energy force, this rock being thrown into it, which just changed the energy of the pond enough to have it flash to the freezing point. That's the type of thing we're talking about. And the elements can do this for us. We all have that flash point like the pond had. And part of the shape-shifting process is creating the catalyst, the stone, that makes the flash point occur. When we're talking about energy and the elements, I'm reminded of one time one of our groups was in the Amazon with one of the shamans. And somebody had a box of matches, wooden matches, little wooden ones. And the shaman asked if he could take a look at them. And he held them up and he pulled one of the matches out and he struck it against the box. And of course it burst into flame. And he said, "This is very interesting. This is a shapeshift. You've just shapeshifted this little piece of wood, this match, into a fire. But he said, what I find very interesting about this is you had to make this match, and I presume what had to happen was somebody had to cut down a tree, and then they had to cut it up into this little piece of wood, and there's some chemicals on there. It went into a factory and had the chemicals put on it, and then somebody made this box, and it's got all kinds of chemicals on the side of it, and it went through this whole industrial process that you're so good at in your country. And he handed the matches back to the person who had given them to him, and he reached down and he picked up a little board with a hole in it and another stick with a bow attached to it, like a bow and arrow type of bow, but a very small one. And he stuck the stick with the bow on it into the board with a hole in it, and he very quickly moved the bow back and forth, and suddenly all this tinder in the bottom of the board burst into flame. And he said, here, to shapeshift wood into a fire, we know that the fire already exists in the wood. All we got to do is rub two pieces of wood together. Interesting that in your country you need to go through the whole process of cutting down trees, making little pieces, and taking them through a factory and applying chemicals. Both of them are shape-shifting. Both of them are using energy. But what a different approach. In the high Andes, amongst the Quechua people, and also amongst some of the North American indigenous people and Central American indigenous people, there's a legend that we call the legend of the condor and the eagle. Now, for the Andean people, the Quechua people, time is divided into what they call pachacutis. A pachacuti is roughly a 500-year interval. The fourth pachacuti began at the end of the 1400s, and it was known long in advance, before it ever started, that it would be a time of turmoil, of conflict, of struggle. And it was also known that the fifth pachacuti, which is beginning now, will be a time of coming together, of union, of partnership. Specifically, in the Andes, it has been said that this fifth pachacuti is a time when the condor and the eagle will fly together, will dance in the skies, soaring together. The condor is considered to be a very environmental bird. It eats carrion. It eats dead meat. It cleans up garbage. It's also a very spiritual bird. It has the largest wingspan of any bird in existence, can be over 19 feet. And it can soar at amazing heights and amazing distances in a very short time. It's said to translocate, to shapeshift, actually not even to fly on its wings, but just to spiritually move itself. The eagle, on the other hand, is considered to be a very materialistic bird. It's aggressive. It's a bird of prey. And it's a very prosperous bird. It builds a beautiful nest, unlike the condor. Neither is better or worse than the other. One is spiritual, the other is materialistic. One is from the heart, the condor. The other is from the mind or the brain, the eagle. What's a problem is when one or the other gets out of balance. And it's said that during this last pachacuti, the fourth pachacuti, the eagle really dominated. The balance was shifted in a major way, so that the heart was put under and the mind was brought way forward, and we've done amazing things with the mind. But now it's time for the balance to be restored, for the eagle and the condor to fly together, for the heart and the mind to come together, for the spiritual and the material to unite, for the environmental and the materialistic to soar and dance together in a dance that brings true balance to all of the world, not just human beings, but all the plants and the animals, the rivers and the mountains and the lakes. This is the legend of the fifth pachacuti, and it has also been said that the way this legend will be fulfilled is through the shapeshifters. An old Mayan shaman, a man named Viejo Itza, once told me, he said, according to the Mayan mythology, human beings have lived on this planet for 4 different stages. We're now entering the 5th, and during each of those stages we've come very, very close to extinction. But at each time, as we were about to enter extinction, the shapeshifters came and rescued us. He said, for example, one time was the flood, very much like our Bible. And he said, if you want to look at the story of the Bible, think about it. What if Noah had gone out and tried to build dikes or dams to hold back the water? It wouldn't have worked. But instead, he shapeshifted with the water. He built an ark and he moved with the water. He became one with the water. and had all the other animals do that and save them. And another time was when the ice threatened to destroy us. What if our ancestors had gone out with chisels and axes and tried to stop these great glaciers that were coming down from the north? But they didn't do that. Instead, they moved with the ice, just ahead of the ice, and they changed their ways. They had to shapeshift their diets. They shapeshifted the way they built houses. They shapeshifted the clothes they wore. They shapeshifted many things in their culture. So now we're threatened with the fifth extinction, and this is one that we seem to be bringing upon ourselves. So if we think that we can bring ourselves out of this crisis that we find ourselves in today by using science and technology, we better have another thought. If we think that we can restore the hole in the ozone layer by sending rockets up to reseed the atmosphere, or that we can cure global climate change through scientific methods, we better rethink that process. Because we know that in the past it hasn't been the axes and the chisels or the building of dikes that's kept the ice at bay or the great floods at bay. It's been the shapeshifter. It's been our ability to change, to be flexible, to adjust, to fit into nature, to shapeshift with the times and the messages. When we today take groups in and ask the shamans, what is global warming all about? What is happening with El Nino? Why are there fires in the Amazon for the first time in anybody's memory? Why are there droughts here that have never occurred before? The shamans say, well, it's very clear. Mother Earth is sending us a message. We've got to change. It's we who are creating these things, and the Earth is sending us this message. So I think of this as being a very, very special time for all of us. It's a time of great optimism. This isn't about saving the Earth, Mother Earth, what the Quechua call Pachamama. Mother Earth isn't being threatened, but we are threatening ourselves, the human species, and we're threatening a lot of other life forms with us. If we get to be too much of a nuisance, Mother Earth will just shake us all off like so many fleas. But she'll go on. From a shamanic perspective, if she shakes us off, that's not such a bad thing either, because the shamans don't believe in death. They believe that we just shapeshift into another form of life. But to me, what's exciting about this, and the shamans share this, is that we're getting a very clear message from Pachamama right now, telling us we need to shapeshift, we need to change. And what could be more exciting? What could be a better thing to do with our lives than to respond to that message, to listen to it, to accept the challenge, and to change things? Just for the sheer joy of responding to the message and changing them. Also, we may want to do this because some of us, like me, have children, and we may want to create a wonderful future for our children, too. So this is an amazing time of challenge to respond to the shapeshifts. All over the world, there seems to be this idea, this myth, this legend that we're entering a time of change. I was very taken when I was in the Himalayas with the lamas, with the Tibetan Buddhists, about a year ago. And there it's well known that the 14th Dalai Lama will be the last. And this Dalai Lama is the 14th. And so we asked, what does this mean, that this Dalai Lama is the last? And the response, including what the Dalai Lama himself, when we met with him, said, is that they believe that this Dalai Lama will be the last from the Himalayas, that it's time to shift the responsibility. And there's a very strong belief within the Tibetan Buddhist community, that the next Dalai Lama will come out of the Americas, particularly from the Andes. Several years ago, the Dalai Lama was in South America, and a number of lamas and rinpoches conducted ceremonies with the shamans there from the Andes and the Amazon in an attempt to transfer this responsibility, this power from the Himalayas to the Andes and the Amazon. So once again, we have the sense that all over the world, people are feeling this need for the shapeshift. Now, how can we shapeshift? How does this happen? What's it all about? And what's the logic behind shapeshifting? Well, the shamans believe, and when I speak of the shamans, I'm speaking of people all over the world. I've spent many years traveling in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, as well as the Americas. And shamans around the world share a common belief in the powers of Pachamama. That's the word used by the Quechua, but by whatever word, it's the same concept. And usually it means, as with the Quechua, earth, universe, time. Pacha does not just mean earth, it means universe, time, and earth. So it's all one. All over the world, the shamans share this belief in our oneness, that we're all totally connected, and that any feeling or sensation of separateness is just an illusion. We're truly one. And that we just have this illusion that we've manifested in this particular form at this time. And we have that illusion and that sense of reality of this particular time because we need to accomplish something in this physical shape. But the reason that we can shapeshift is because we're already there. We're already one with the other, what we call the other. So the shaman who shapeshifts into a jaguar can do this because he's already one and the same as the jaguar. In order to do this shapeshifting process, we need to first hold a vision of where we want to shapeshift into. In our workshops and in the second part of this program, you'll get to experience this directly. We need to look at the difference between what we like to call a dream and a fantasy. This is the vision. And I'm just going to define these things now. You can disagree with the definition if you want, but I would ask you to accept it for the purposes of completing this program, that a dream is something that we truly want to have happen to us. We want to have it manifest in our lives. A fantasy, on the other hand, is something that we like to look at in the other worlds, but we don't really want to experience it in this life. So a dream is something we really want to have manifest. A fantasy is something that is fun to journey to sometimes, but we don't really want to have it manifest. Now, what's important to understand here is that whatever we give energy to will manifest, whether it be dream or fantasy. And we're going to get into some techniques as to how to give energy to these things in a few minutes. But it's very, very important to know that we must make that separation. We've all given energy to our fantasies and wondered at some time, why did that happen to me? And then we think about it and we realize that we'd given a lot of energy. It was a fantasy, something we didn't really want to have happen. So it's very important that we give our energy to the dreams, because when we give energy to fantasies and they manifest, two things happen. We get something we didn't want, and we haven't given that energy to something we did want. So it's really a double whammy. So a lot of the work that we do in shapeshifting is looking at our dreams and making sure that they're not fantasies, making sure that they're something that we want to shapeshift into in this life. And then the next part of the process, once we've established that this is a true dream, is to focus our intent on shapeshifting it and then to give it the energy that it needs to shapeshift into this new form. And I would just like to reiterate the importance of experiencing this. So in the second part of the program, we will be experiencing this process together, and that's the best way to understand it. In the meantime, I'd like to share with you a couple more stories. And I'd like to start with my own personal story so that you have a feeling for where I'm coming from and why I got involved in this and what my own background is. In the late 60s, 1968, I graduated from business school, Boston University, and decided to go in the Peace Corps. And I specifically requested the Amazon because as a child I had grown up in New Hampshire and been very taken by the powers of the indigenous people in that area. I have a little bit of Abenaki blood in my background and was just deeply enthralled by the way the indigenous people, what we call the Indians, related to their environment and the magical things that they did, things that I now know are shapeshifting. And I realized that the only place in the world today, or one of the only places in the world today where that sort of thing still occurs, is in the Amazon. so I'd had a desire to go there for some time. I joined the Peace Corps, and the Peace Corps sent me off to a training camp in Escondido, California, Southern California, into an old nudist colony, which was actually a very appropriate place to get training for the Peace Corps and going into the Amazon. However, it had been converted into a Peace Corps community where we learned to speak Spanish, and also because I'd graduated from business school, I was trained to be a credit and savings co-op specialist. When I finished there, I was immediately sent to Ecuador and into the Amazon. It was a long journey to get into the Amazon. I had to travel for a couple of days by rickety old bus down from the high Andes down to the end of the road. And when I reached the end of the road, I had a long hike ahead of me, and part of it I did on horseback through the jungle, going deep, deep, deep into the forest. And at this point, I was getting very, very depressed. It seemed like I had made the wrong choice to go in the Peace Corps. It was raining all the time. I was not feeling very good. I was feeling very lonely. And perhaps worse of all, I found that I couldn't communicate with anyone. I'd had 8 weeks of Spanish training in Southern California, and that really wasn't very much. My Spanish was not very good. But to make matters worse, as I moved deeper and deeper into the jungle, I discovered that nobody who was coming the other way out of the jungle, who I'd frequently meet, could speak Spanish. They all spoke either Quechua or Schwa. And so it was a very difficult time. I was most unhappy. Eventually, I reached the place where I was headed, this little community which was primarily Schwa. And there was one man there, a school teacher, who could speak Spanish. And when I told him that I had finally arrived to his community and I was there to help him and his community establish a credit and savings co-op, he gave me the strangest look. And he kind of glanced around and he said, "You know, what would we do with the credit and savings co-op? We don't have any money here." Day after day, I would stand at the edge of the jungle as the people came back from gathering berries and seeds and from their hunting expeditions or whatever they were doing in the jungle. And I would stand there and I'd hand out these comic books that the Peace Corps had given me about credit and savings co-ops in Spanish. And of course, the people who couldn't read Spanish took the comic books. And every night, I would get into the center of the community, and in my very broken Spanish, I would talk about credit and savings co-ops. And what was really amazing to me was that each night, more people came in to listen. The main food of the Schwa is a type of a beer called chicha, and that is their main dietary substance. And they would bring in all this chicha and pass their chicha bowls around. And each night there'd be more and more people. And I was beginning to get very happy, feeling that my Calvinistic background was really paying off, because here I was persevering, and they were getting it. We were going to have a credit and savings co-op. And then one day this teacher who had befriended me took me aside and he said, "You know, I just want you to know that you're really not getting anywhere with a credit and savings co-op idea." He said, "You know, the Schwa here don't have television. They don't have newspapers. You're the only show in town." And so these Schwa were sitting there listening to me and watching me and saying, "Boy, who is this dumb gringo? Like, he not only can he not survive in the jungle and he's sick all the time and he doesn't speak any language we understand, but every night he stands up here and gives us this incredible show." So very quickly I learned that I had nothing at all to teach the Schwa. Nothing in all my background, all my years of education, could help them. But they had a great deal to teach me about the jungle, about life, about shape-shifting. And one day I was very ill. I was dying. I lost 35 pounds in less than a week. And this old Schwa man came to me, and through his son who spoke Spanish, he said, "You're dying, you know." And I said, "I know it." And he said, "Well, that's good, because now you get to shapeshift into something better than a human being." And at that point, I think I started crying. And he said, "Oh, well, I see you're not ready to shapeshift yet. So the other alternative is I can heal you." And I begged him to heal me. And he did a ceremony very much like the one I described for Sarah earlier, and shapeshifted me. And in that process, what I discovered as I was going through this ceremony with him, I started vomiting, and I vomited a great deal. And I saw all these orange lava, like worms coming out of me. This was a vision I had. It wasn't actually happening. Or maybe it was, but in our terms, we'd say it was a vision. And I went back in time to when I was a young boy growing up in New Hampshire, and my parents and grandparents taught me that germs were very dangerous, and that if I got my feet wet in the snow in the winter, I would catch cold. So whenever I got my feet wet in the snow in the winter, I did catch cold. And if I ate things that hadn't been properly prepared at home, I would get sick. And I realized that now here I was in the Amazon, and I was drinking this chicha, this beer that they make, and it's made by the women chewing on manioc roots and spitting it, and then it ferments. It's very good. Now I've learned to like it, but in those days I was scared to death of it. So I had this dream, this fantasy of being sick, and I'd given it energy, and I was sick. That's how shapeshifting works. It's the same with the Sarah story. When she was very young, things were spoken around her house that were painful to her, that she didn't want to hear. So she gave energy to a dream of not being able to hear, and went deaf. The world is as we dream it. It's the title of one of my books, and it's something that the shamans around the world will tell us. The world is what we dream. And this was proven to me very strongly during those years when I was a Peace Corps volunteer back in the late 60s, and I had this disease, this sickness that was cured by the shaman. I'd like to take a moment to address this sickness issue. When I talk about the world is as we dream it and people getting sick, this doesn't imply that if you're sick, you've brought it upon yourself, or that you should feel guilty about that. But it does imply that sickness carries a message. And let's talk not just about sickness, but what I'd like to call dis-ease, which could be physical, or it could be emotional, psychological, any type of dis-ease. A lot of the medical doctors we work with have experienced the situation where they may surgically remove a cancer from someone, and then a few years later the cancer will come back, or it may come back in another form. This doesn't mean that the person has willed this to happen, the person wants to get cancer. But in the opinion of many of these medical doctors, which is consistent with that of the shamans, there is a message here. And for the person who has the cancer operated on and it doesn't come back, usually that person seems to have gotten the message. So there's a message here, and we need to listen to it. For example, in my situation in the Amazon with getting the sickness, the message for me was to understand that the human body is very flexible, that getting your feet wet in the winter in New Hampshire doesn't have to result in a cold, or eating foods that the Schwa prepare that are different from anything I ever ate before are going to make me sick. Obviously, that's not how the human body works, because the Schwa have been eating these foods for hundreds, thousands of years, and they're some of the most healthy people you'll ever find on the planet. So my message was to change my perception about some of these things and not to continue to hear these voices of my own past. After I finished in the Peace Corps, I went back to what I'd been trained to do. I went into the consulting business. I worked for the World Bank and the United Nations, traveled all over the world for the next decade doing consulting work. And every opportunity I had, I visited shamanic cultures. I would take time off at the end of an assignment and go and live with shamans in Sulawesi, Indonesia, or in the deserts of Iran, or in Egypt, or wherever. And after a while, after 10 years, I began to get very disgusted with this business. I was not happy with the way the World Bank and the United Nations were looking at the world with some of the projects that they were developing. So I left that job and created a new business, which was an alternative energy company, looking at building power plants that were environmentally good. And it was a very risky business, one where people frequently failed. And actually, my company over the next 10 years was one of the few that was very, very successful. And this brings up another point of shapeshifting, that during all of that time, our major decisions were made using the kind of shapeshifting techniques that you're going to learn on the second part of this program. So when I was with my executives, for example, raising millions of dollars, sitting in a boardroom in Wall Street with a table full of investment bankers and lawyers, we would make decisions using shape-shifting techniques. And I really attribute the success of our corporation to institutional shape-shifting. So at this point in my life, I was very strongly experiencing all three levels of shape-shifting. I'd gone through the cellular, the healing, and I continued to do things around that. I was constantly changing my personality, moving from what I'd been trained to do as a business administration major in business school and with the World Bank, which was working in developing huge hydroelectric projects and roads into the jungle, changing this into a person that was becoming very, very successful at developing alternative energy projects. It was a fascinating experience to see how these techniques that came from what we considered to be primitive cultures were helping me and my staff move forward in the business world. And then in 1990, I sold that company and retired in my early mid-40s and decided that what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing was helping the people who had helped me so much. And I'd heard that the rainforests were being destroyed. So I went back to the Shuar, and I said to the Shuar, I have some time and energy now, and I want to help save your forests. And I met with a group of elders, and they looked at me and they said, well, that's a nice thing for you to do. But if you want to save these forests, don't come here and try to change us. We don't need to learn any new religions or languages or ways to economic development. It's your people who are destroying the forests. It's your oil companies, your lumber companies, your mineral companies, your cattle ranchers, and more than anything else, it's your dream. Because the world is as you dream it. And you people in the North have had this dream of lots of cars and heavy industry and tall buildings. And now your dream is coming true. You're beginning to discover that it really wasn't a dream at all. It was a fantasy that's turned into a nightmare. So you need to change that dream. So go back and help your people change that dream. Once again, I was learning from the Shuar that I had nothing to teach them, but a great deal to learn from them, as did my people. We created an organization called Dream Change Coalition. It's a non-hierarchical organization that's dedicated to changing the dream. And this was an organization that was created by the shamans and a group of us in the United States and Europe and Asia, and move forward with this idea of changing the dream. Now, at one point, the shamans also said to me, if you have certain people who want to come here and learn more about shape-shifting and dream change so that they can go back and help your people change, then bring those people. Don't bring people here who think they can teach us something about saving these forests, but bring people here who think they can learn from us to help your people shape-shift and change their dream. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years through this organization, Dream Change Coalition. And recently, within this past year, 29 of us from Dream Change Coalition went to the Himalayas and did a lot of the work I described earlier, working with lamas and rinpoches there, learning about their shape-shifting techniques, spending a great deal of time with the Dalai Lama and many of his teachers, and continuing in this process. One of the things the Dalai Lama said to us at the end is he said, please realize that each of you can affect one other person, or 10, or 100. Maybe some of you will affect thousands of people. But if you instill in each of those people that they can in turn affect another person, or 10, or 100, or 1,000, very soon you will truly change the dream and make this a more earth-honoring and sustainable species, our human species. We've talked a lot about healings that have occurred and other types of shape-shiftings that have occurred with shamans in the Andes or the Amazon or the Himalayas or wherever. I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that it's necessary to go to these places to have shape-shifting happen. Shape-shifting happens all the time. And one of the things that I learned and I guess it took working with the shamans to help me understand this, is that we can all shapeshift. We're all shapeshifters. We can all do it all the time. And we can apply it to many different aspects of our life, whether it be physical or personal or institutional. And that no matter where we are, we can make this happen. And it doesn't have to take very long. So I really encourage you to understand that you don't need to go anywhere or be with anyone in order to materialize your dreams, in order to shapeshift. The ability to do this is inherent within you. It's part of you. It's your birthright. We're all given that birthright. And now all we have to do is practice it, make it happen. I'd like to take you on another journey now, and this one's to the Himalayas. It's into a very, very old monastery, high up in the mountains. I mentioned the Mahakala, this wrathful deity, and I'd like just to share with you something that the Mahakala taught me. I was in the Alchi temple, which is this ancient monastery in the Himalayas. In fact, a monastery where some people have suggested Christ may have spent the 17 lost years, the years that are not referred to in the Bible, between the ages of 13 and 29. When I was there with the Mahakala, he taught me something amazing. The Mahakala is about breaking down barriers, about soaring above our limitations. And what he taught me, that one of my limitations at looking at peace, at looking at this shapeshift into this area of peace, has been understanding any practical way of going about peace, of going about encouraging peace and all that it stands for. And the Mahakala literally shouted at me when I was on this journey with him, "Make a list." I was there with a Lama who was traveling with us, one of the Dalai Lama's teachers, who had taken us on, our whole group, as sort of his wards, and he was to be our teacher for the whole time that we were in the Himalayas. He was standing there next to me as I'm in this temple of Alchi, looking up at the Mahakala, who is on the panel above the doorway. And he also heard the Mahakala say to me, "Make lists." And so together we started making this list. What is it that we need to do in order to shapeshift into peace? What is it that I can do as an individual, or you can do as an individual? Because part of the shapeshifting process is to take specific action in this life. But this is some of the list that I have. It's a much more extensive list, but just to share part of it with you to see the practical standpoint of this. The first item on it is to preserve nature. And under that item, we have such things as teaching our children about the value of nature, its importance to creating clean air, water, soil, medicines, and other material things, as well as healthy attitudes and lifestyles, and so on, going further down the list. The second main category on this list is to conserve resources. And some of the subcategories under that are things such as use less oil, cut back on all industrially produced goods, purchase products that come without packages, drive smaller cars, buy smaller homes, give non-material gifts, reuse and recycle, teach resource conservation to others, and so forth. The third general category is to encourage social and economic balance. And under that, such things as investing in companies that include this as part of their mission statement, fighting for equal pay among all genders, races, and nationalities, and so on. The next category is to advocate population stability, and under that comes send messages to the scientific and medical communities that their decisions should be driven by what is best for the future of all life forms, not just for those in the technologically advanced countries and those who sit at the top of the economic ladder. To try to restrict yourself to having one child, or, if it's already too late for that, to encourage others to do this. The next category is to reduce tension, and under that, become more aware of your own stresses. Implement techniques to control these, such as meditation, walks, exercise, shapeshifting. To avoid hurting others, to not gossip or spread rumors. If someone does something you disapprove of, discuss it with that person directly, and so forth. And the next category, discourage the use of lethal technology. There's a lot of things we can do under that category. The next major category is to balance male and female, to consciously balance these within yourself. Our culture tends to be one that represents a lot of male attitudes, and where those have predominated, and we need to bring the feminine much more into power. To foster a deeper respect for the other sex, whichever the other sex happens to be, and to work to increase feminine attitudes and activities, the nurturing side of ourselves, nurturing plants, animals, children, the elderly, all people, and showing more compassion. And also to work to cut back on the male activities. In the Shuo community, the Shuo tell us that the sexes are equal and very different. And they say that the male is a destructive force. The male cuts trees and kills animals when protein is needed, and also kills other human beings when wars are needed. The female, on the other hand, is nurturing. She raises children, she raises the gardens, and she has one more very, very important activity, according to the Shuo, and that is to make sure that men don't overdo their work, to tell the men, look, don't cut any more trees, we've got enough canoes, our house is big enough, we've cleared enough land, stop. Or don't kill any more animals, we've had enough protein this week, we don't need any more, stop. And when the Shuo come to this country, they look around and they say, boy, this is a really male culture. You've cut so many trees and you've built so many buildings. When is it that the women are going to say stop? So one of these aspects of creating a situation for peace is to bring about more balance in the male and the female, and to know when to stop with these activities. That's just a partial list. We can all come up with our own lists. This one is the one that came to me as a result of the message from the Mahakala and the work I did with the Lama there myself. But for me, it was an extremely enlightening experience to have understood where this whole concept of peace and my own attitudes and issues around it came from, and to see that in order to shapeshift ourselves into a peaceful world, a peaceful situation, we need to follow through on all the 4 steps of shapeshifting. We need to hold the vision of peace, and then we need to see clearly what that intent is. And that if the intent is just peace for humans, it won't work, because peace has to be for all life forms on this planet. And then to apply energy to this process, to take in the energy of the elements, all the energy, and apply it toward this process and toward the 4th step, which is taking action. Actions like the ones that came off of the list that I've just shared with you. The shamans teach us that we each come into this life with a mission. That's one of the reasons we've manifested as human beings this time around. Because although human beings are not at the top of some pyramid, we're not superior to other life forms, we do have a special role, and our role influences all other life forms. We, more than anything else on this planet, influence the whole planet. So when we choose to manifest in this life, it's because we have a mission. I've shared with you my mission, and I know that it will happen. This shapeshift will occur. You too have a mission. Identify it, claim it, have faith in the power of shapeshifting, and move forward into it. And you too will see your dream materialized, your mission accomplished. There was a great shaman several centuries ago who lived in Europe, the German shapeshifter, Goethe. And I'd like to share with you something that he said when he talked about shapeshifting. He said, and I quote, "Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it." You've heard the stories of how shapeshifting works. Now, accept the challenge and try it yourself.
This concludes Session 1 of Shamanic Navigation with John Perkins. Our program continues with Session 2. Sounds True presents Shamanic Navigation, Session 2, Guided Journeys with John Perkins.
Now I'd like to take you on a series of 6 journeys. These are journeys deep into the shape-shifting process. The first journey is about defining your mission, or what we could call the dream, and making sure that it is a dream, not a fantasy. We might also call it the new shape that you're going to shape-shift into. And you move through that into energizing this mission, into looking at the way that it relates to the larger world and future generations, into getting rid of barriers that might be blocking you from the journey, and then into a couple of very powerful journeys that bring the energy of the elements into your new shape, into your new dream, into your mission, and really empower it and set the tone for the actions that you need to take to complete it. So by the time you finish the 6th journey, you'll be well into the shape-shifting process. And if you do these journeys as described and continue to do them, then I guarantee that the shapeshifts will happen. So please make sure that you're really moving into a real dream and not a fantasy. One other thing I'd like to say, and that is that shapeshifting is all about the heart, not the intellect. It uses the elements and it uses spirit guides. You'll be meeting some powerful spirit guides during these journeys. And in the voice of the shamans, there are no rules. It's important to let go of any preconceived ideas. So what I'm going to be saying during these journeys are just suggestions, things that work for many people. But if you find that you're going somewhere else, that you're being directed to something other than what I'm saying, please let go. Go where you're directed. Move into that space. This is your journey, and your guides will take you where you need to go. So follow them. Now that I've shared this list with you, I just want to reiterate the importance of taking action. Whatever your mission is, whatever your dream is, whatever the new shape you want to shapeshift into is, please keep in mind the importance of action. Remember that a shaman is a person who journeys into other worlds in order to gain power, energy, and wisdom from those worlds to effect change in this world. But the shaman must use that power, energy, and wisdom to act in this world. And it is the power of those actions that make all the difference. When we want to manifest things in this reality, we must act upon them. We must be very clear as to what our vision is, what our dream is, how it integrates with our intent, and then we must use the energy from the elements, and we must act. So let's begin now. So please find a comfortable spot. You could either be lying down on the floor, or on a couch, or you could be sitting in a chair. If you're sitting in a chair, please have your feet flat on the floor, or sitting in the lotus position, or however else you can get very comfortable and very relaxed. And as you're there, feel yourself relaxing completely, sinking down into Mother Earth, letting go of all problems, all tensions, all thoughts and worries, all concepts, just completely letting go. Let your body relax. Let your mind relax. Feel everything relaxing, starting at the top of your head, down through your face, including your mouth and jaw, all the way down your body, feeling everything relax, sinking in to the nurturing embrace of Mother Earth and letting everything go, letting everything relax. And now you're feeling as though you're on a magic carpet and you're going to take a journey to the Amazon rainforest. And you can start to feel the magic carpet lifting up above the spot that you're in. And you can look down and see the place where you've been receding below you. And you lift up higher and higher and higher, watching the ground get smaller and smaller beneath you, until finally you're way up above the planet, looking down, and starting to move south, down toward the Caribbean and South America, looking at the beautiful earth below you. Feel yourself just moving this way. Below you now you can see the great Amazon forest. It's like a big green patch beneath you. Can't distinguish any of the trees, just this green area. And now slowly feel yourself moving down toward it, like a leaf drifting in the breeze, moving closer and closer toward the Amazon. And you can start to smell the air. This is the place where more oxygen is produced than any other spot on the earth. It's getting closer now, and you're beginning to be able to distinguish the individual trees. Feel this. Start hearing the sounds, the birds, the insects. And up ahead you can see a river. Let the magic carpet take you toward the river. And you start to descend down the river, moving along it, along its banks, feeling with all your senses, seeing, smelling, tasting, breathing the air, listening to the birds, the insects, and the rushing water. And up ahead, you see a beach on the side of the river. Move toward that beach. Let the magic carpet settle on the beach. And just sit here for a few minutes, taking in with all your senses everything that's around you. Smell the air. Feel the earth beneath you. Feel the air around you. Let your tongue go out and taste it. Taste the humidity. Look at the trees, look at the river, look at the earth, the leaves blowing in the breeze. Feel the power of this place, Pachamama. Feel all the energy that's coming into you from the elements, the fire of the sun, the power of the wind, the love of the earth, the water that flows beside you, its strength, its healing powers. And now, off to the side, you can see a trail going into the forest. Stand up and go to the trail. Start walking down the trail through the forest. Walk like a Shwa. The Shwa teach us that when they walk through the forest, they never look at their feet because they always want to look around them. Your feet know the way. They'll find the way. So observe everything. The plants, the orchids and other brightly colored flowers, the birds, hear the birds. Let the trees massage you. Don't push them out of the way. Let them caress you and massage you and heal you. Taste the air and the leaves themselves. Feel the earth. Smell the incredible smells that are all around you. The fragrance of the trees, the fragrance of the flowers. Some of the orchids are very strong smelling. Keep walking, experiencing everything with all of your senses, being open and receptive to everything that's here around you, feeling great gratitude for this experience. And now up ahead you see a break in the trees. There's a clearing. And in the clearing, in the center of the clearing, there's a fire burning. Walk into the clearing, looking all around, observing it, getting to know it very well. And have a seat near the fire. Now in a minute you're going to hear some drumming. And as this happens, let some entities come into the clearing. Could be butterflies, animals, one of the elements. Could be a person or people, spirit guides or real people. Let them come into the clearing to greet you, to welcome you, and talk to them. Ask about your mission. This is a journey to discover your next mission in life, whether it be a very personal one or a more global one. Let these guides help you, or perhaps it's just one guide. Ask questions. The guides will never deceive you. They may not always answer your questions, but when they do, you can trust the answers. When they don't answer the questions, it's because you're not ready for the answer yet. So ask another question. But keep asking questions. Find out about your mission, about your new dream, the shape you're going to shapeshift into next. And just let this happen. And at the same time, experience all that's around you. If you have any final questions to ask, do it now. Now begin to focus on the fire and thank any helpers who've come into your life at this point for the work they've done with you. Feel their spirit and feel their power. Focus on the fire, on the forest around you, on the earth beneath you, on the smells, the sights, the sounds, the tastes. Focus on these things and feel the power and the wisdom of this place where you've been spending this time. And know that you can return here anytime you want, whenever you're looking for more advice, whenever you need more information about this mission, this dream, this new shape you intend to shapeshift into. And when you're ready, start back down the trail, the same trail that you came up on your way here. Walk like a schwa, moving slowly down the trail, feeling the earth beneath your feet, letting the branches and the leaves massage you, listening to the sounds of the insects and the birds, and in the distance the river, and its sounds grow louder and louder as you approach it. Smelling all the smells, tasting, using all of your senses as you walk on down through the forest toward the river. And when you reach the river, go to the magic carpet and sit there for a minute. Absorbing all the energy of this place and knowing that you take this energy back with you, that it will be there for you. And when you return, you'll feel both relaxed and energized. And now you can feel the magic carpet starting to lift up, moving up above the river and going back up the river, rising slowly up along the trees, over the trees, to a point where you can look down and see the individual trees of the canopy below you. And then the magic carpet starts to rise up, straight up. The rainforest falls away beneath you. You give your last thanks to it, again knowing that you can return whenever you need to, rising higher and higher, higher and higher, until the rainforest below you is just a patch of green. And now the magic carpet and you start to move north, back toward your home. You watch the land beneath you as you move across it. Feel the power of what you've just experienced and give thanks for all of this. And now below you, you see the place where you started, and you drift down like a leaf in the breeze, slowly, slowly, moving back to the place from where you started. And as you enter that place, feel yourself becoming fully present again, as you were when you started. And know that when you come out of this, you're going to feel very energized and also very relaxed. When I count to 3, on the count of 3, feel yourself fully present back in the place where you started. 1, 2, 3. Now that you've defined your mission, the second journey will be exploring the way that the mission ties in with future generations, So if your mission has been a personal one, look at how that may relate to future generations, to this whole concept of peace and of looking out for future generations. See how your dream fits in with that. Now, if your mission already was about future generations, peace, that sort of thing, then explore this in much more detail, looking specifically at how it will relate to future generations, not just of people, but of plants and animals, of all sentient beings. So this is going to be a journey to the center of the earth to explore the mission. Once again, get in a very comfortable position, either lying down or sitting in a chair with your legs crossed in a yoga position, however is comfortable for you. Let go of all your thoughts, all your worries, all your fears, all your anxieties. Relax. Let your body relax. Let your mind relax. Starting at the very top of your head, feel everything relaxing and falling inward, moving inside of you down toward the earth, toward Pachamama, the earth, Pachamama. And now feel yourself sinking into the earth. And as you sink into the earth, you see the various layers. You may see the grass, the dirt, the sand and clay. And you move further down, deeper, deeper into the earth. Keep moving, feeling the power of Mother Earth, her love, her tenderness. Feel her encompassing you, welcoming you, absorbing you. You're shape-shifting into the earth herself and feeling her shape-shifting into you. And you're moving deeper. You may see some underground water, streams and lakes that are underground. You may see fire, molten lava. Look around. Experience this with all your senses. Taste the earth. Smell the earth. Feel her. Listen to the sounds of Mother Earth. Listen to her heartbeat, her rhythms. Experience them becoming one with you and your rhythms. Your cycles and hers are mingling. Keep moving down, deeper into the earth. And you see light flashing past, subatomic particles, energy flashing by you, whizzing around you, entering you, energizing you, relaxing you. And keep moving deeper, deeper and deeper into the earth, feeling her power and her love for you. Keep moving deeper into her, feeling this, experiencing it with all your senses, and feeling the ecstasy of your oneness with the earth. And now as you approach the very center of the earth, you can see the one tiny subatomic particle, a particle of energy at the very center of the earth. Move into this particle. Shapeshift into it. Be one with it at the very center of the earth. Feel what that's like. Feel the energy and the power and the wisdom of this place where you're at. And now as you're sitting there in the very center of the earth, see a sacred place for you. A vision of a place you may have been when you were a child or more recently, or some place that you've never seen before. But it's very sacred, and you feel very secure in this place. It's here in the center of the earth. Explore it using all of your senses. Feel the power of this place. And now as you're in this place, this sacred place, see your mission, your new dream, the shape you will shapeshift into. See it in this place. Visualize it in some form. No matter what it is, see it now in this place. And move around this mission, dream, shape, as though it were a hologram, moving around it. See it as something that's already been completed, that's happened. Move around it. Look at it. And now let the earth speak to you and tell you how this dream of yours, this mission, will help future generations, or how you might modify it, or act upon it in ways that will help the future generations of the birds and the fish, and the insects and the animals, and the rivers, and the lakes and the plants, and all of Mother Earth, all of this place that you're in the middle of. Ask the earth how realizing your dream will help all of the earth and all of the future generations that inhabit the earth. Now slowly let go of this vision you have of your new mission, your dream. Let it fade away, giving it thanks, and giving thanks to Mother Earth for helping you understand how to tie this in with future generations. Staying in your sacred place, looking around it, and thanking it for being there for you, knowing that you can return here at any time, whenever you want. It doesn't always need to take so long to get here. Time is irrelevant. And now let your sacred place fade away. And you're here at the center of the earth, in this tiniest particle, in the very heart of the earth, the very center of the earth, feeling the power, the energy, the wisdom of this earth, this Pachamama. Slowly now you start to move out of this place in the center of Pachamama, back toward the surface, smelling the earth, tasting her, feeling her, seeing her, listening to her as you move out. Seeing the tiny particles flash by you, the incredible energy that makes up the earth, and continuing to rise higher and higher, closer and closer to the surface. And you may see more of those lakes, molten lava, fires, rivers, underground caves, moving higher and higher, feeling more and more energized, committed to your dream, committed to your mission, and to integrating it with future generations. And now you may see clay and layers of sand and gravel, and now rising up, up, until you break through the surface of the earth, and you're back where you started the journey. And just remain here for a minute, feeling the power of what you've just experienced, reviewing it in your mind, the mission, the dream, the way it relates to future generations, the power of what you've experienced, and knowing that after I count to 3, on the count of 3, you're going to feel very energized, very committed to the dream, and very peaceful. 1, 2, 3. The things that typically prevent us from doing shape-shifting, or the things that have prevented us from doing shape-shifting in the past, we call blockages, barriers. These may be fears, anxiety, something that stood in our way, that's kept us from moving forward into our dream or our mission. And now we must get rid of those. But before we get rid of them, we need to really identify them, to know what it is we need to get rid of. So this next journey is one to look at the blockages, to look at the things that are stopping us or that have stopped us from moving forward in our life, into our new stage, into our new shape. And I want to mention at this time that our mission, our dreams can change. And as they change, and as we realize them and move on to other ones, we also come up with new blockages. So right now, what you need to look at is, what are the blockages? What are the barriers that might prevent you from following through on this mission that you've defined in the last 2 journeys? What is standing in your way of realizing the dream that you've seen in these last 2 journeys? This one will not be a guided journey. You'll just be hearing drumming. And see the blockages. See whatever it is that might stand in your way. Anxiety, fear, voices from the past, a parent, a teacher, a religious leader, somebody telling you, you can't do this, you can't do that, something stands in your way. But see these, and there may be quite a few of them. And this can be a rather painful journey. So let the emotions come forward. If you feel angry, feel the anger. If you feel sad, feel the sadness. Let the emotions come, but very clearly see those things that are blocking you. And in the next journey, we'll be getting rid of them. But it's real important that you look at them in this journey. So please, once again, get very relaxed. You can either be sitting or lying down. Get very relaxed. Feel yourself just letting go of everything that's extraneous to these barriers, and allow the barriers to come up. This next journey is all about destroying the barriers, the blockages that you saw in the last journey, getting rid of those so that you can move forward into the mission, the dream. And this is going to be a journey to the Mahakala. I mentioned the Mahakala earlier as being this wrathful deity who's very important in Tibetan Buddhism. An incredible deity, very fierce, very wrathful. He's wrathful in our favor because he's going to help us get rid of our barriers. So his wrath is all about our barriers. He's angry at our barriers. He's angry about these things that have stopped us from doing what it is we need to do. And so he's going to help us get rid of them. So feel that. This will be a guided meditation, and you'll meet Mahakala. He's a very fearsome person, a very fearsome deity, a very fearsome entity. Feel that. Feel the fear, the terrifying power that he has, and the amazingly wonderful power he has to help you move beyond your barriers, your fears, your anxieties, any blockages that you've ever had or consider that you might have to help you get into your mission, your new dream. This journey is generally done sitting down. You could be sitting as in the yoga position, the lotus position, a meditative position, or you could be sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Feel yourself relaxing. Close your eyes. And in front of you, you see just darkness. Darkness. Feel the darkness and the emptiness. And now into that darkness, you see a mountain. And you start to move up the mountain, going higher and higher. And at the top you can see a snowfield. And you go all the way up to the snowfield. In the snowfield, there's a cave. And so you go into the cave, and it's very dark in the cave. You're moving deeper and deeper into the cave. And now suddenly there's a light, and you see ahead of you this incredibly terrifying figure of the Mahakala. Dark, dark blue, sitting there on a great throne that's made out of a bright red flaming lotus leaf. And his hair is like flame, red and yellow shooting up, and he wears around his head a crown of 6 skulls. He has 3 eyes, luminous eyes that stare out at you, looking at you as though they were ready to eat you up, to gobble you. And his mouth has 2 huge fangs that are pointing up toward his eyes. All blue his face, and out of his mouth is dripping bright red blood that goes down his chin and onto his blue chest. And around his neck he wears a garland of human skulls and shrunken heads. And in his left hand, he's holding a human skull. And in his right hand, poised up over his head, pointing down at you, is a terrible, curved, sharp dagger pointing at you. His body, dark blue, is dwarfish, stout, strange, deformed, but very, very powerful looking. And he's looking at you. He's glaring at you. And you know that he's a cannibal. He eats people. He eats flesh. He cuts it up with this dagger of his and puts it in the bowl, and he eats it. And he's glaring at you. And suddenly he shouts at you, "Stop!" And you must look at what it is that you must stop doing. Look at your barriers, the blockages. You must stop having these barriers and these blockages. So with great respect to him, you approach him, and you lay all your barriers, your blockages at his feet. His legs are dwarfish, very powerful, and he's picking them up and letting them fall down. And you lay all your blockages, all your barriers, all your fears and anxieties, everything that could possibly get in your way of realizing your mission, at his feet. And he begins to stomp on them. He treads on them and he brings all of his weight down on them. And now he jumps up and down on them, crushing them, breaking them, shattering them. And you feel the power of this. You feel these blockages, these barriers being torn apart beneath his feet, crushed, softened, mutilated. And suddenly he jumps back and he starts hacking at all the barriers with his knife, cutting them up into tiny pieces and putting them in the skull bowl that he holds in his hand and mixing them up with his knife. And now he lifts the bowl to his mouth and eats them. And he may have to do this several times. He's a cannibal. He's a wrathful deity. But his wrath is aimed at all your blockages, all your barriers. He cuts them up into tiny pieces, mixes them in the bowl, and devours them. And when he's finished devouring all of your blockages, all of your barriers, he collects the blood that's been dripping across his chin and down his chest in the bowl. And he holds it out and shows it to you, his blood in the bowl. And he lifts the bowl up to his mouth and drinks and drains it, mixing his blood with all the flesh of the barriers, the boundaries of yours that he's cut up and devoured. And you stand there looking at him. You're feeling weak because you've released all these barriers that have been around you. And there's a side of you that's feeling a little sad because you've gotten rid of part of you that's been important to you in the past. There's a loss here. There's a death. And you stand there for a moment and you mourn these things that you've gotten rid of. But you know in your heart what a great favor the Mahakala has done for you to get rid of these things for you so you can move into your new shape. And you feel that. You feel that power and the energy that comes from releasing these blockages, these barriers. Feel the energy flowing back into you. You're getting stronger. And now you see that the expression on the Mahakala's face has changed. No longer does he look so wrathful. He's actually smiling and looking at you with great compassion. The knife is no longer poised in the air. It's down by his side. The bowl has been turned upside down. It's empty. He's taken away your barriers, your boundaries, the blockages that have been getting in your way. And you feel so grateful, so relieved, and you know that you're ready to move on. And so you speak to him in your own way, expressing your gratitude and your commitment to move forward with your mission, your new dream. Do this now. Speak to him and offer him your thanks. And see the way he smiles. See the way he reacts to you. Feel the warmth and the compassion he holds in his heart for you and your mission. And know that if any other barriers arrive, any anxieties or fears, you can come back to him. And he will destroy those for you too. You can let go of them as long as you continue with your commitment to move forward into the mission. And now you bow to him, once again offering your thanks, and turn around and slowly walk out of the cave, back to the edge of the mountain, standing there looking down from the snowfield. And let yourself go, moving back toward the place where you started, watching the mountain grow smaller, giving your thanks to the mountain, to the Mahakala within the mountain, moving back to the place where you started from. Feeling yourself now sitting there, your eyes closed, feeling the power of what you've just experienced, feeling how strong you are now that you've gotten rid of these barriers, these blockages, the things that stood in your way, knowing that you have no excuses now. You must move on with your dream and your mission, and feeling the incredible excitement about that. Feeling the power, the energy, and the wisdom within you to be able to move into this new dream, move forward with this mission. And on the count of 3, you'll open your eyes and feel very energized and very ecstatic and ready to move forward, knowing that you can accomplish whatever it is you set your mind to and open your heart to. 1, 2, 3. At this point, you have a very clear vision of your mission or your dream and the intent behind it. That's been very clear also. You've gotten rid of the barriers, the boundaries, anything that could have blocked you from moving forward into this dream. So now it's time to take on the energy from all the elements, and bring them in to your dream to empower it to move forward. So this next journey is called the seed, and it's practiced in many cultures around the world. I've run into it amongst the Mayans in Central America, the Quechua in the Andes, the Bugis in Sulawesi, which is part of Indonesia, the Spice Islands, and a similar type of journey amongst the people of Tibet also. And this is actually a physical journey where we do some physical actions. The journey starts by kneeling down on the ground with your head tucked down toward your knees so that you're really in the fetal position, but on your knees, not lying on your side, but actually on your knees, with your hands stretched out behind your feet, and your fists are closed, and you feel yourself as the seed, and you think about the amazing power of a seed. So feel this power inside of you, the power of the seed of your new dream, your new mission, your new shape. Feel this power. And now slowly let your fingers open out of your fists like sprouts, going into the ground, breaking the granite. Feel the power of this. And you can slowly start to stretch your arms out and let them reach upward. And as you do this, feel the power of the air, the element of air flowing into you. And now you can start to rise up, standing up, moving higher. Do it at your own time, with your own speed, but let your arms move around, let your body flow, let it move. Feel the power of the fire, the sun coming into you, and feel your roots going down into the earth, bringing in the power of the earth, like all seeds and all plants do. Feel the water that's in the earth and that's in the air around you and that will be coming with the rains, the water that's already inside of you. So feel the power of all the elements: fire, earth, air, water. Feel all this flowing into you as you grow, standing up taller, rising higher, and at the same time, hold the vision of your dream, of your mission inside of you, and see that expanding and growing out and taking in energy from all of the elements. And you continue to grow, to reach up, to take in the elements. And for a minute, just feel this. Feel this with all of your senses. Smell the power. Taste the power. See the power. Hear the power. Feel the power. Feel the energy. With all your senses, experience the energy from all of the elements coming into you. And now you're at your full height. You're reaching up with all your branches, with all your spirit, and you can feel coming through you all four of these elements, and they create the fifth element, what the Quechua call Ushai, our consciousness of oneness. And you feel your oneness with the earth, with the air, with the water, with the fire, with all the other trees and plants around you, with all the animals who will brush up against you. Some of them will eat you, parts of you. You feel your oneness with them, with all the people, with the insects that are such an important part of you, that help you in so many ways, and whom you help and you feed. Feel your oneness with all of these creatures, with all of these sentient beings, including all of the elements, and with all the people that will pass by you, or who will walk over your roots, who will take pleasure in you. Feel your oneness. Feel the power. Feel this fifth element, Ushai, consciousness of oneness, and bring all that power into your dream, into your mission, the power of all five elements. Feel that power energizing your mission, your dream, and feel your absolute, total, complete commitment to realizing this dream, to making the mission happen. And now slowly, when you're ready, and when you feel all that energy deep inside of you, start to shapeshift out of the tree into your human form. Stepping out of the tree, taking on your human form, and knowing that you and the tree are one. You're one with everything. You are Pachamama. Pachamama is you. And you will manifest your dream. Feel that. Know it. And on the count of 3, be fully present. 1, 2, 3. This next journey is a journey to Green Tara. You met her earlier. She's a Tibetan deity, a Dakini, a female bodhisattva or Buddha. She's very, very powerful. And when you do this journey, you do manifest your dreams. So whenever you use the Green Tara journey, be very careful. Be certain that you are working with a dream, not a fantasy. Because when you do this journey, if you do it as Green Tara instructs you to do it, you will manifest what you're visualizing. So now you'll be working with your dream or your mission, the one that you've been experiencing in the past 5 journeys, and bringing it all to an amazing conclusion here, a very powerful shapeshift. Please get in a comfortable position. You can either be sitting or lying, and feel yourself completely relax, once again letting go of all thoughts, all concerns, all problems, all worries, letting your body completely relax, and your mind and your soul relax, closing your eyes. And you see in front of you just a dark space, nothing there, relaxing, letting go of everything. And now into that dark space, you see a lake. This is the lake that was created by the tears of Avalokiteshvara, Green Tara's mentor. This bodhisattva who was so compassionate that when he looked down and saw all the suffering on the earth, he cried these tears, so many they created the lake you're now seeing. And in the middle of this lake, there's a lotus. You look at the lotus for a while, and slowly the lotus starts to open. And as it opens, you see Green Tara sitting in the middle. She's a beautiful green-colored woman, beautiful with a radiant smile looking at you. She's absolutely gorgeous, sitting there looking at you. One leg is tucked under her in the yogic or meditative position, and the other is hanging over the lotus as though she's ready to come down to the earth and help whoever needs help. She has a big smile on her face. And she's wearing a crown that has 5 heads, 5 powerful deities who are there to help you and help her help you manifest your dream. In her left hand, she's holding 3 flowers. One of them is just a bud. One of them is fully open, and the other one is so open that it's practically gone by. These represent the past, the present, and the future. And her other hand is resting on her thigh, open, facing up, receiving energy, ready to give out compassion. So you start to move slowly toward her. She beckons you to come even closer with her open hand. And with her open hand, she reaches across and takes the 3 stems of the 3 flowers in that hand and moves her hand up them, bringing them all together. The past, the future, and the present all become one. And she lets you know that it's all the present. Time is irrelevant. And she holds out the flowers to you, showing you this. It's all one. Space and time are all one. Now she moves that hand back down to her thigh where it's open and beckons you to come even closer, inviting you to look into the palm of her hand and see your mission, your dream in her hand. So now you see it very clearly there, the mission as it will look when you've completed it, when it's done, the dream that is manifest, the new shape once you've shapeshifted into it. See it clearly in her hand. Green Tower lifts her hand, places it against your forehead, right where the third eye would be. And now she moves her lips close to your forehead and presses them against your forehead. And Kamai's blows her spirit into you through your forehead, pushing your dream inside. Whoosh. And you can see that now inside your head, the dream, the new mission. And it's as though there are a million stars. The whole universe is inside of you. And each of those stars holds your dream, your mission, clear, vibrant, just as it will be when it's completed, 1,000,000 times, millions and millions of times. And suddenly there's a great explosion. And you feel the energy going all through your nervous system, everything that has to do with your mind, your head, your thought processes, the energy of the dream, the mission, and of Green Tower, coursing throughout all of your systems, everything that has to do with your mental capacity, with your thinking, with your thought processes, going through you, energizing you. And now again, you see the mission, the dream in your head. Millions of stars, all holding the dream reflected millions of times. And it explodes again, and goes throughout everything that has to do with your thought processes, with your mind. You feel the energy of this, the power. And now it happens once again. You see your dream millions of times in your head, and it explodes, and all that energy goes throughout all of you, everything that has to do with your thought processes. And now, Green Tower puts her lips against your heart and Kamai's into your heart. And you feel the dream, the mission going into your heart, and you see it inside of your heart like the universe 1,000,000 times. The power inside your heart. And suddenly it explodes. Boom! And all that energy goes throughout everything that has to do with your heart, your physical heart, the circulatory system, your soul heart, the spirit of your heart, love, everything that has to do with your heart being energized by Green Tower, by the stars, by all the energy of the universe, and mixing, integrating with everything to do with your heart and your emotions. And now it comes back into your heart. You see all those stars again, and the explosion a second time. And all that energy, once again, flowing throughout everything to have to do with your heart and your emotions. And now a third time. Feel it happen a third time. The explosion, boom, and the integration with your heart. And now Green Tara, come eyes into the area just below your belly button. The hara, or the ki, or the chi, that area just below your belly button. And you feel the dream going in there, the new mission. And you see it inside of there as though it's in a crystal cave, reflected thousands of times, millions of times, expanding, growing, huge. And now it explodes. And you feel all the energy integrating with everything that has to do with your soul, everything that has to do with your body and your heart and your mind. You feel the complete integration of your dream and the mission with your mind, body, soul, heart, spirit, a complete integration. And now you see it come back into that area, the dream, the mission, as though it's in a crystal cave, magnified 1,000,000 times, millions of times, and it explodes again. And you feel it integrating with all of you. Everything coming together, the energy of the new mission, the commitment you have toward it, integrating with all parts of you. And now a third time it happens again. And you feel the integration. You feel it happening again. You feel the power of this. And now the dream, the mission, your new shape, rises back up through your heart, up, back into your head, and you feel Green Tara sucking on it, pulling it back out through your third eye and into her, empowering it, knowing that you've been left with all this energy, with all this power, with all this wisdom from her. And she's there for you. She moves back a little bit, and you sit down in front of her, looking at her, and she's smiling at you with deep compassion and love. And she's telling you that this is the first step of the process, and that you should come back to her at least 3 times every week and go through this process with her. You could do it more often, but you must do it at least 3 times a week. And she tells you that that's the first step, the journey into other worlds. But in order to manifest your dream, to realize your mission in this world, you also must take another step. And that is that every day you must take action. So every morning when you wake up, make a commitment to doing something during the day to further your mission. Could be making a telephone call, speaking to a friend, sending an email, but you must do something. Writing the first paragraph of the next chapter of your book, taking a step in the right direction, something every day. And she smiles at you and she says, well, if you miss a day, don't worry about it. Just get on with it the next day. But try to do it every day. And then she says, there's a third step, because 3 is a very important number for the Tibetans. And this third step is to express your mission. Sing it out. Voice it. The word is very important in all cultures. Many cultures believe that the universe was created by the word or by a sound or by a song. And so it's important that very frequently you talk about your dream and your mission. If you're a dancer, dance it. If you're a musician, play it as your music. If you're a writer, write it. The words don't have to be spoken. They just need to be expressed. But frequently express them. And so you're sitting there in front of Green Tara. And again, she reaches over with the open hand and takes a hold of the 3 flowers and moves her hand up the stem, bringing the flowers together, past, present, and future. And she reaches over and touches the top of your head with these flowers, these 3 flowers that now are one. She reminds you that all is one, that time and space are irrelevant. And at this journey you've just done, when you do it in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, doesn't need to take you very long at all because time is irrelevant. But you must do it 3 times a week, at least. And you must take action, some action to further your mission, every day, or nearly every day. And that the third thing is, it's very important for you to express your dream, your mission, to speak it to others, or paint it for others, or dance it for others. And if at first you're not comfortable expressing it to people, then express it to a cloud, or a rock, or a mountain, or a dog, or a cat, or a flower. But eventually also express it to people. And she taps you 3 times on the top of your head with the 3 flowers to remind you of these 3 steps, and also to remind you that whatever you put into this process will be manifest. So be careful. Make sure it's a dream. Make sure it's a true mission. She lifts the flowers. She removes her hand and puts it back open on her thigh, and her other hand is still holding the 3 flowers. She smiles and bows to you, and you start to move back, and you offer her thanks. You're feeling so full of gratitude, so full of power and energy and wisdom, committed to moving forward with your mission, your dream. You thank her. You thank the dream. You thank the stars and the universe and the 3 flowers. You thank her hand that's shown you this dream. And you thank all the elements, including the 5th element, which have given you this power. And you thank the Mahakala. And you thank the Amazon and the entities that helped you there. You give thanks to all the guidance that you had, and you feel in your heart the tremendous power and energy that you have. And you move slowly back further, watching Green Tower get smaller. And now you see the lotus reaching up and closing over her and sinking back down into the lake. And the lake now begins to fade in front of you. The darkness returns. And you sit here for a while, just observing the darkness and feeling what it is you feel, feeling your power and your commitment. And on the count of 3, you'll open your eyes, be fully present. You'll feel very relaxed, very tranquil, very energized, very powerful, and ready to move on, to manifest your dream, to complete your mission. 1, 2, 3.